Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. We're here live at the Gem and Jam Festival here in the Pima County Fairgrounds, and it's been a long time coming. I had a chance to, via B. Getz, connect with a gentleman who's keeping the music alive. Ramon Juma, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hi, Jake. How you doing?
It's nice to hang with you, man, and meet you in person. I wanted to ask you about coming back to Tucson. How spiritual it has been for you. You were born here, and you. Well, why don't you tell the story?
I didn't stay much as I was younger. I was born here, and my mom moved away back to our hometown in Kansas, and recently, 4 months ago, I found out that I had a sister living here in Tucson. And I'd only been back a couple times since. And to find out, it's a really nice story. My mother got pregnant soon after having my brother and was going to have 2 babies at a young age, and she decided she couldn't, she wanted my sister to have a better life. And in the end, my sister has found us. She's happy that my mother gave her life, and she's had a better life, and everything's been good, and she's happy to reconnect and find my mother. And now I realize I have a sister, and it's my sister found her mom. My mom now has a big relief of something in the past. But in the end, it's become a very positive situation because everyone's moving forward. And coming back to Tucson, yes, I just met her 4 days ago, and we hung out a few different times, and it's been great.
Can you talk about personally what it's meant to you, or how you've absorbed? Is it too soon to absorb it?
It's still in that situation. Just yesterday I met 2 nieces and a nephew.
Wow.
And me and my other brother, neither one of us have kids, so now to realize that I'm an uncle and all that, of course, is really interesting and still a lot to grasp. And hopefully definitely want to be, right now I'm the cool uncle, but I definitely want to be more influential than just the cool uncle, But it's a very interesting situation and a lot to be learned from it and to keep moving forward with it.
Can you talk about, from your point of view, as somebody who is a creative source for the music, you build a lot, you are on the touring circuit quite a bit in a lot of different amalgamations. How strong is the touring circuit in America, and what is the vibe like in your mind, and how has it changed, or how is it the same from when you were on tour?
Well, obviously me on tour was in the early 90s. I was following the Grateful Dead around. I didn't get really caught into the scene with them until exactly around 90, 91. And up into 95, most of the time I did some summer tours and got a few shows, be it spring or fall. Not really on tour, but a few shows. But the festival scene kind of kicked up, there was a really downtime after Jerry died. And
how many years did that last?
Because that was 95, so firstly got involved around 2004, and maybe a few years before that I started getting into the music scene a bit, and I think it was a pivotal time of the festivals coming, and the original festivals that were, not original, but the ones at the time, the Gathering of the Vibes, and certain ones, a lot of those guys were deadheads.
Right.
This was an extension of, obviously other people have spoken about that, but it definitely was an extension of what the Grateful Dead had and the 90s had created. So the music scene, the festival scene had started from that. And like over that time, just with me since 2005, what I've seen is like the whole progressive of how it's grown. And each weekend there's something somewhere, 2 or 3 or 4, there's a lot of music out there. And I think the society now even is more in tune with it. Because when I started, even 2005, people wouldn't get the references of some of the bands, this or that, and I realized when you're in it, you don't see how the media and the information is out. And like now I can make references to some of my friends and my cousins in smaller towns. I guess I could reference, and I mentioned certain bands and people and scenes, and they have references to it, which in the past they necessarily didn't have, because it's grown,
A drummer for Garcia, Daoud Shaw, just passed away. He played briefly in '81. With his wife Ezra Mohawk, and he talked about looking outside the back of the bus and seeing 30 cars deep because they took a lot of buses during Jerry Band, in the 80s. Do you see a lot of the same heads at the same festivals, or is it more of a transient thing where there's a different vibe to each region? Because what I'm getting at is the idea of, cats at Dylan shows or Dead shows, they look in the front row, they see the same people every night. Do you see that? Like at these, when you're constructing these festivals, do you see the same thing?
Well, because I come in the beginning and leave at the end, I see a lot of the scene of, especially I started with side ops. You're here for the build and you're here for the teardown, and so I see the people come and go. And in general, it's mostly the vendors and the people who are on the scene are touring because it's their livelihood, it's their work. And yeah, there's kids out there who are enjoying the music every weekend, and you do see them. You make friends with them. We're kind of the gypsy crowd of the modern day society, and the new circus, some people call it. There's not many circuses around anymore, but we do have the festivals, and it's the. I also consider it something like the recess for adults. A lot of friends, when they have a night to get away from the kids or the weekend, they go out and they kind of release a lot of their stresses and their day-to-day things, and they go out and they're kind of, I'm not going to say young again, but they have a freedom to express themselves and maybe costume up and kind of get that young feeling again, and not being really too caught up in what people are thinking at the time, or thinking about you, or just being able to express themselves.
Talking to Ramon Juma here on the Jake Feinberg Show, live on Power Talk. How did you actually, you were obviously on Dead Tour, but how did you actually connect with the band directly?
Well, after Jerry died in '95, I was pretty much, I helped run a fruit and vegetable warehouse in Lawrence, Kansas, and I was real active in the community because I was delivering to literally every restaurant, bar, the sororities, fraternities, just a man about town. And a lot of my friends Lawrence started having a music scene build, mostly through ska and punk rock. And a friend of mine, Jeff Fortier, had started bringing a lot of good shows in, and that's right when the grunge scene kicked off.
Mm-hmm.
And literally Pearl Jam played a thing called Day on the Hill, which usually would get like 2,000 or 3,000 people. But from the time they signed to do it to the time they were going to play, they blew up. And like Day on the Hill had like 10,000 people. And it was at that point that Lawrence, kids used to go home during the summertime, and like there'd be 20,000 less people in Lawrence. But kind of when the grunge scene started, all that, people started staying through the summers, and there was more of other bands came out of that, and Lawrence had a few bands that came out into they were calling the grunge scene at the time.
Sure.
Which is extension of like the punk scene, and I guess I would say, like back then the Red Hot Chili Peppers were playing the Bottleneck, which is like, an 800 person venue, or out at the Outhouse they had like Ice-T and Body Count and Helios Creed.
Body Count was out there?
Yeah, Body Count. The Outhouse was a brick building.
Wow.
In the middle of a cornfield that hosted everyone from Body Count to the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Selector, Bad Brains, like a lot of cool. Lawrence came out of a punk rock scene and ska, and eventually Wakarusa started there, and kind of got involved in the rest of the festival scene circuit.
So the original question was how you connected it with the band.
Right. So through that, everywhere, I got kind of involved with music. I was delivering to some of the local live music venues, and got interested in wanted to be a part of it. And Jeff, actually, I wanted to work with him. He was promoting a lot of shows around town. Never really brought me in at the time. And like slowly and surely, initially the truth. Anti-Ballast Afrobeat Orchestra played in Lawrence, Kansas one night, and me and my girlfriend had just split up. Well, that kind of comes in later, but I went and saw their show and was so blown away by them. I decided that I wanted to see them next, and the internet was just coming around at the time, or it'd been around for a bit, but I looked up. They were playing a festival called the Langerado Festival in South Florida, and randomly a sound guy I knew from the Bottleneck in Lawrence, I'd only known him a few months. I brought it up that I wanted to go to this festival, and randomly he goes, "Ramon, I'm the stage manager at Stage 3 for Langerado. if you can give me a ride down there, he goes, I'll get you paid work. And at the time, we were getting slow at the produce company I was working at. And I was taking time off here and there when I could, and I took time off to go down to the Lingarado Festival. And that festival, didn't really know who I was working for, this or that, but quickly after the first day, I've been working, and they were like, we're going to give you your own people, some volunteers tomorrow, give you your own radio. And I had been doing rainbow gatherings in the past and been on the dead lots. So I'd been around groups of people and events, and it just kind of came second nature to me, I guess, to be a part of that. I'm a hard worker, and at the end of Lingarado, some of the people, when I went to, let's say, go get the check, people I'd been working with or hadn't got too personal with, working together, invited me, hey, I run a festival, you want to come work for me, and this or that. And it kind of kicked off from there, and word of mouth and hard work. Eventually you keep going to the next festival. Someone wants to hire you and put you in a trusted position to get the work done. And I slowly moved up to the music business, from digging holes, doing site operations.
Wow.
Bringing in the infrastructure in the beginning, and like,
what was the hourly wage on the digging holes?
It's mostly like day wage. Like, you agree to like.
And you had some perks, like,
a day,
yeah,
maybe $200 a day, but at the time it was more like, you're definitely working long hours for a small pay, but you're involved around these, a scene, and like across it's a music scene, I mean, it's
well, there's a vibe,
yeah, and so like side ops, where I started working a lot, if you do the job right before get everything set, then you have a radio on it. If something pops up, there's an issue, you have to run, and we call it putting out fires. You go and put the fire out, and then you can kind of relax and have some time. So I ended up hanging around the stages a lot, or just hanging around, and I met a lot of musicians. And it was the kind of situation where I would walk away from just talking to people backstage, and someone would be like, what were you guys talking about over there, this or that? And I'd be like, we're talking about something that was on TV, or this or that, something like, well, don't you know who that was? And I'd be like, clueless to who I'd been.
Right, you were talking about at sports cars or something. Yeah. That's all. Yeah.
And
you weren't in awe of these cats.
So I made some friends. Papa Molly I made friends with
Papa Molly, man. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg show.
And like 4 years into that, I'd see Malcolm around a lot, and it was at the Loki Music Festival that happened in Asheville, North Carolina, that his tour manager was taking off to go work for Sound Tribe. I saw the guy this weekend here, and we just kind of become friends through the music scene, just certain weekends here and there, and asked if I wanted to be his tour manager. And by that point, I'd been a shuttle driver, I'd done security, I'd been ran some hospitality. I was doing hospitality at that festival, actually. And I was like, man, I've never been a tour manager, but I knew it was just responsibilities and taking care of the artists, the bands. And I told him, yeah, I think I could do this. And I went out for a weekend with them a few weeks later, kind of, I wouldn't say on a trial basis, but and it just kind of started from there. It kind of came natural, just in the sense of being a personal assistant and making sure that help making it happen.
With the Seven Walkers?
Yeah, no, that was with Papa Molly.
Yeah, with Hubbard and those cats?
Yeah, no, at the time, Papa Molly had the Papa Molly going out as the trio. You had Robbie Kidd on drums.
Oh yeah, Robbie, man, I love badass dude.
The bass player was coming in and out on occasion. I remember at the time we had Hutch Hutchinson play.
Dude, Hutch is tuning into this. So Hutch was,
he played a show or two with us.
Oh my Hutch, man. When are you coming on the Jake Feinberg show, man?
Who was on bass at the time? Man, I can't recall in the beginning then. But eventually, people like Brad Hauser, who was in part of the New Bohemians and a lot of other projects.
So with Malcolm,
Papa Molly,
yeah.
After being with Malcolm, got settled in, tour managed him for a couple of years. Him and we came across Bill, I think at the Oregon Country Fair. Malcolm's probably, you said you've spoken with him, but him and Malcolm met there. I think it didn't click with Malcolm at the time, who he talked to on the initial.
Now, you know this story though, that Papa Molly told me after that gig, Steve Parrish walked up to Malcolm, opened his wallet and took out Jerry's pick and gave it to me, because I've never seen Billy. I haven't seen anything like that since Jerry died.
Right. Yes.
And so he held on to that pick.
I know that story.
Okay, so he told me that in interview one. So it was the spirit was at work,
Right.
most definitely. So that was your first gig as tour manager.
Tour managing with Papa Molly
Yeah,
for a
Papa,
couple
yeah.
years when they met, and so it started out. They decided they wanted to collaborate, and Amy had turned Bill on to Amy Kreutzmann, his wife now, had done a radio show and knew Malcolm's music.
Amy Bird has a radio show?
She did
Wow.
in the past back in Kauai, and kind of turned Bill on. You should go see this guy, Papa Molly, and that's how they kind of initially met, because Bill went to check it.
Wow.
And they decided to start playing with each other, and it started out as, you know, Bill was real cool when I met him. Like, they'd go out as Papa Molly featuring Bill Kreutzmann, and I think occasionally it was Bill Kreutzmann featuring Papa Molly, but Bill didn't necessarily, he liked it as Papa Molly featuring Bill Kreutzmann. So there was a few collaboration shows like that, and then
What was your contributions? I mean, you wanted the music to burn. You wanted those guys to be in their best state of mind. How did you create that for them? What were some of the close calls that you? Is there a story that you were able to navigate them into a good place?
Man, I'm not sure. This I was kind of on that story still. I mean, I'm just a helpful person. I mean, I you know, started working with Malcolm. I don't know, tour managing, personal assistant, kind of don't know how to put the label on it. But especially once Bill came along, you know, obviously I did whatever I could to make sure that everybody had what they needed, and so they could just create and be who they were as artists and musicians. Any one specific or certain thing in the beginning, I don't really know. I mean, just taking it all in and being present when needed.
Right.
People need a little hand or help here or there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain from right.
No, it's fine. I mean, I guess.
But I was wanting a little bit finish.
Good.
Bill was out with us, and one day he said, you know, I'm going to need some time in the morning. I don't want to bother till noon. And it ends up he had an interview with the band, and with the Dead guys, with the Grateful Dead, and they weren't sure if they would be playing. Well, I'm not sure what happened at the time, but after that interview, I know within that week, Further announced that they were a band, and within a week of that, after that, Bill asked Papa if he wanted to create a band, and that's how the Seven Walkers started. And when they decided to actually have a band, because Bill said he had music and lyrics from Robert Hunter that needed to be shared, and felt like Malcolm was was somebody who could share them with him, and he wanted to create the band and put out some new music, and that's how the Seven Walkers came about.
What did, as best you could decipher or interpret, what did Billy see in Papa that? I mean, Hunter's lyrics made half the Dead. Barlow's lyrics are amazing too, but why did Malcolm assume it was just? Was there I'm not going to say shamanistic quality. Was there a spiritual thing there?
Yeah, Malcolm carries a lot of spirit with him, and I think there was something to do with, you know, it's coming out of Louisiana, having sometimes Malcolm's music is considered, you know, there's a term swampadelic, and
genres. It's just all music.
Yeah, he had told me already at that point that, you know, he'd been highly influenced by the Dead. He also had the reggae background.
Big time.
And I don't even think Bill had known about that at that point. Not necessarily, I'm not sure, but yeah, Malcolm is he's a spiritual guy. He's a very oh man.
Just going to the lyrics though. The lyrics, what Billy felt Malcolm was the right guy to.
Yeah, at the time, I think Bill was ready just to get out and express himself some more, which I don't think he had many regular gigs.
Did you say you actually originally had a connection with Mickey Hart though?
Well, when I was a Deadhead younger, I got into the percussion.
Talk about that.
Yeah, well, so going to the Grateful Dead line, other than going into the shows, a big part of it was just being out in the parking lot playing drums.
Sure.
And
rhythm.
That's kind of that really got me going into the dead. It was like,
You playing garbage cans, or like what were you playing?
I came in because of drums and space, really, before any of the lyrics and the songs.
Dude, I used to get. I just want to say, I used to get cassette tapes. People say drums and space. I used to say, why? I don't want. They're like, that's the best part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get it, but.
And drums just kind of came to me. Yeah, and I play a lot of percussion.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, I actually played newsstands and trash cans quite a bit myself. That I traveled around for a while when I was younger with a backpack, and I carried a drum with me, and I could busk and score up $30 in a matter of minutes. Or
What kind of drum was it?
It was actually an African doombag from
Uh-huh.
Morocco that had
Yeah,
a
a doombag.
tambourine under the head.
Yeah.
And
Vince
it
Delgado
kinda
plays
sounds like
that.
two or three. You know, it got 2 or 3 sounds going
Wow.
on when you play.
Yeah.
And it looked like the Stanley Cup. So actually, when I was hitchhiking, people would pick me up a lot because they were just wondering what the hell I was carrying around with me. Big silver chalice, you know. But yeah, so.
So you were in the parking lots
drumming
playing
really,
drums.
Yeah, drumming really brought me into it, and yeah, and then going to the scene, you know, just being out in the lot, it was like, I don't know. The hippie scene when I grew up, you know, I followed it a little.
Was
bit.
Mickey out there? That's how you met him? Or,
No, I didn't meet Mickey at the time, but you know, I was just. My family name, actually, my grandparents' name is Garcia, so there was always a little connection with Jerry Garcia too. You know, like I wasn't related to him, but you know, it was my family name from my grandfather's side.
Can you talk about, to the audience that's tuning in now worldwide, keep the comments coming in, and you were up this morning, I mean, you're not up on the bandstand playing music, although you did busk with the drum. What did you do this? Can you describe succinctly what your main sort of artistic and work-related stuff was this morning?
For the last few years, I've been helping my friend Jamin Murphy with his company called Function Forums, and we decor events and a lot of music festivals. We have 5 installations here. I'm at the Gym and Jam, and they're over the crowd. They're like, some people call them shades. We kind of call them stretchy fabrics. Some people call them sails, but it gives a little eye candy to the scene. And what I like about it is, like, when photographers take pictures of either the crowd or some of the bands and stuff, it's just something that's in the background, and it's more than just the sky in the background and stuff, but just the different angles too. So it brings a lot. People enjoy them. And this morning we had some terrible wind, so we were really on the ball. Like, on a weekend other than this, sometimes there's no wind, there's no rain. It's another thing. You put it up, and at the end of the weekend you take them down. But there's weather involved, which is our worst enemy with this position, decor. We had to stay. We had a few lines to fix, some stuff broken down, and so. Are
you working these things from like a elevated position, or are you on the ground?
I go up on the lift.
Yeah.
I kind of specialize in running the heavy machinery. I use the low, but I'm also up there putting the fabrics up too. Yeah, there's a lot to it.
So at this point, Getz asked me to ask you about this the Eclipse in Oregon. There's a story there.
Oregon Eclipse.
The Oregon Eclipse.
Well, we just recently went to the Oregon Eclipse.
And how was it? You want to talk about that experience?
Yeah, well, Jamin has actually been to a few of the Eclipse gatherings around the world. Every 2 or 3 years they throw one of these, even though there's an eclipse somewhere every year across a piece of land. But a global community of people come together and celebrate the eclipse and have share the experience. And I think this is Jamin's 3rd one. It was my first. And so he was already in tune with some of the people who put it on, the infrastructure, and it was great to be a part of it. There was, you know, you hear about it, like the experiences of it, and it's a nice time for the world to come to, you know, people to come together,
right,
interconnect on a worldwide basis. It makes you realize, and I learned last year we went to work at a Rainbow Serpent Festival in Australia, and being here and being in the festival scene for, you know, 13, 14 years now, I went over to Australia, and you realize that that is just a little part of the whole scene. You may do every festival in the United States, or
Sure.
plenty of them, but you go over there and like there's people over there. It's a little more international. They've been to Goa. They go to, they're coming from Europe. They move around a lot more than you think. Oh, I've been around the United States with music, and I have traveled to Costa Rica for some festivals, and some other places, Jamaica and Australia. But
I mean, you've been around the world, all around this world.
yeah, there's definitely a bigger scene to say like.
Well, I mean, again, the audience wants.
And so yes.
How do you? Yeah, I mean,
Eclipse. I'm not. It was amazing.
Here's the bottom line. The question is, how do you bring the festivals, the music festivals, together worldwide? How do you make that community congeal in your opinion?
I don't know. I guess it's on the dance floor. I mean, I kind of got involved with the music, other through the percussion. The other side of that is dancing. And
Music is supposed to be danceable.
yeah, I feel, dancing. Like eventually, I want people to be out there dancing too, and I wanted to be a part of sharing the dance in different ways. I don't know. I'm a little caught on that one.
I was going to say that. I mean, if you're speaking to people around the world that are doing a job just like you, what's your advice to them in 2018 as it relates to?
Oh well.
I mean, as far as like creating the energy that's going to bring mankind closer together.
Well.
Through dancing.
I would say while you're working a festival, you don't really have just one position.
You're wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, and then like there's random stuff with people, especially if you have a shirt that says staff or crew, which I try not to wear too often on site because then they think you're just the information booth. But then sometimes people need that, and you find yourself at the right place, right time. Could it be someone like, sometimes I joke about being worldwide security, but someone may be dehydrated or somebody, there's situations that pop up. And a lot of times when you're working, even if your job is secure and it's nothing's going on at the time, there's always something to be done. And I've never turned, I've never, not to say that people do this, but like, oh, I'm hired to do just this, or I only have these responsibilities. I'm always in, and that's the thing that happens with the people. Most of the people at the festival who are working are happy to jump in and work with some other crew at some other, something that wasn't necessarily your position, or we all kind of blend together in that way. We work together to make it happen. And a lot of times that's how it happens. There'll be stressful, dramatic situations backstage for whatever reason it is, but you go back out front, and when you got friends there, you got to realize that, like, you don't want to bring out, and not that there's negative things back there, but just the stress of making the show happen. You go out there and you're like, oh man, we did all this, and you realize, oh wait, everyone out here is having a blast. Everything's perfect, and
it's interesting to walk into those two
backstage. But you got to be sure you don't want to carry that out too much, because there's always going to be that, because that's just how it happens. That's what makes the festival or music happen. The festivals happen is everyone wants it to be right, wants things to be perfect. So there's heated this or that, but in the end, it all comes together, and it's present. The way it comes out is positive, and if there was a little scuffle of words or this or that, eventually that smooths out. It be at the end of the festival, or maybe a matter of minutes later, hey, I didn't mean to bark at you, or this or that, because everyone wants to be sure that their responsibilities are filled, and you can't do it on your own. You need the help of the people around you too, and you're willing to ask people that help make it happen. And in the being backstage and working amongst the different crews, everyone's willing to do that.
Do you have you seen Lettuce before?
I have seen Lettuce.
Can you talk about Adam Deitch and his drumming capabilities? And just talk about the band. Actually, Kraz, like you told me, I just found out from Kevin Calabro too, no longer with Lettuce. Or he picks and chooses his shows. I'm sorry.
He comes and goes with them.
He comes and goes.
I mean, he's been playing with a lot of other musicians and stuff. And Lettuce. Some of those guys I met on jam crews, kind of just
great hang.
Not being on stage, but just the hang time. Like jam crews is an amazing time to up close and personal with a lot of the musicians and artists. And Lettuce at the beginning, I don't know, Lettuce had been around, but I didn't really know him. I grew up in Kansas. They're coming out of Boston at the time. But
right.
Adam, each one of those guys, are amazing musicians on their own and have so many other side projects and stuff. And I think when I first met that group of guys, they kind of were doing things that, you know, I knew Kraz from Soul Alive, his music and stuff, and, you know, I heard Eric, Jesus Combs had been playing bass lines with hip hop, and Adam at the same time, and the Shady Horns eventually doing a lot of other collaborations, and being, yeah, you know, Lettuce is amazing. A band like that's like Anti-Ballast. There's so many people, you know, each one of them are their own artists. They can, you know, have their side projects and collaborations, and they're just amazing, especially when they come together and make it happen as a band of friends and put that music out there.
Talking to Ramon, Juma, having a ball here on the Jake Feinberg show. You texted me and said Reed Mathis is coming in here tonight to the Gem and Jam, and he's playing with John K. Was that John Kimmock?
No, it's John Kaledik.
I didn't know what the K stood for.
Yeah, that's Kaledik.
How do you spell?
I've been the singer with. I'm sorry if I'm getting his name wrong. Kaledik. He was originally, I believe, out with. They Cover the Dead.
Well, it's okay.
I'm telling you, I'm forgetting the name of it. They recreate the Dead shows. Dark Star Orchestra. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah. So and he's filled in a few. I think eventually he's played with Further, and he has this thing. What's it? The Wingman.
The Wingman.
Gay Wingman.
Yeah. Are there too many side like? Did Billy Kreutzmann have a lot of like? I mean.
Bill wasn't involved with that side project, but Reed's coming in to play with him because he's one of the wingmen of people who played with the Dead, and I think that's what the band is created around. Jeff Chimenti was with them on occasion, and this one's not officially that name, so I didn't know that it was a super group.
Right.
And they kind of say special guest, so I didn't know Reed was going to be here. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh, great, because obviously I worked with Reed in the past with the Seven Walkers. He was the original bass player.
Did they go on the road with Reed?
We never did. Right at that time.
It was only in the studio. Like if you're home base, what are your roles when you guys were just cooking the groove in the studio?
We came together. We did some recording in San Francisco. I think is one of the original.
Remember where the venue where you recorded?
I can't recall the studio. I know it was in the Mission. I wish.
Billy's Rec. Billy wanted to do it down there.
I don't really recall how we connected with this.
Yeah.
And Reed was originally the bass player. Eventually, when George came in and played, the album hadn't quite came out, and we were able to get George on a few of the tracks. But Reed was initially most of the tracks.
Kadelsek.
Yeah,
Kadelsek.
I'm sorry.
John Kadelsek.
Yeah.
Thank you, B. Gads. We love you, man. Before I let you go, tell me what keeps you inspired. What gives you hope moving forward, especially as it relates to consciousness expansion through rhythm. I mean, we live in a very digital age now. We don't have the drum circles here, and there's a lot of music being played in isolation. You know, so I want you to look into the light, and what do you see that gives you inspiration, that keeps you floating on these things that you build in the morning that I can't remember what they are.
Yeah, the stretchy fabrics.
The stretchy fabrics thing.
I think recently, I didn't actually read the article, but there was something about music being the effects of music on the human, and it's the sound, it's the vibration. I think it is there's an effect of it. Let's say I've felt it, and it's something that's part of why I'm involved with it. Like, I feel other people should feel it, and like be there. And it's about, at these festivals, like I said, sometimes I say it's like the recess for adults, but there's more to it than that. It's the vibration is an effect on people, and
the physical vibration.
Yeah.
It's not just taking in the notes through your ears.
Yeah.
It's like feeling.
I actually have bad ears, and so half the time I don't actually hear the words. Yeah. I'm hearing the music and I see the reactions of people, and right. I'm feeling the energy and vibe from many different senses, not just through my ears or, with my eyes, and dancing and feeling, and I think people need to experience that. People need to shake it off sometimes, and people need to dance. Dancing is inspirational. There's a freedom to it, releasing, and I think dancing, music, all the vibration that's created with it needs to be shared and used more often. I mean, maybe some people go out, you hear this yelling therapy and this or that, to release this stuff. But you just need to go dance and shake it off,
Before I let you go, Ramon Juma, which means Friday, and it's the end of the weekend. It's not the beginning of the weekend, but why do you like the Jake Feinberg show? It took us 3 years or at least a couple years to connect through B Gets, but I mean, you've been following my. What do you dig about? What do you dig about it?
What I enjoy, I was trying to explain to somebody from introducing them to you that you get stories from people who are around. The stories they're little personal stories of people who were there. They might be the drummer for John Coltrane or this or that, and like you may not be as well. They're not as known, but they give you insight on the person, the personality, and the insight to the different musicians and people, like at a people level, at a personal level.
Do you find yourself becoming a little, when you read them, sometimes getting inspired by them yourself?
Yeah, to me. I mean, I love music. I mean, someone told me at one point I should be,
Well, you were busking with a
just like ethnomusicology. I'm into
right.
I enjoy the information and
dig.
Yeah, it's inspiring for sure.
Well, it was great to connect with you. Thank you to B Gets Mazel and Ramon Juma. Continued success, and there's more to come.
Yeah, thank you, Jake.